workforce in this country all have their different conditions of service, and it's documented, legally documented. And so government goes by its role that it has to play, and the labor will also go by its role that it has to play. A lot of the times you find labor agitating that government is not playing its role, and so it actually embarks on strikes. Now, in 2022, we started seeing different types of strikes, quite early within the year. And it looks like it had rippling effects on other institutions that also followed suit, thinking or alleging the government has not, gone by its responsibility as far as the documented conditions of service is concerned. And so some of them on the streets, some of them agitating, some of them on sit-down strikes, some of them not reporting to work. So if you look at the list, we have right from the beginning of the year, the members of the Certified Registered Anesthetics already deciding to go on a strike. It was just within the first week of January, in fact, to be precise, 1st January. And then the rest followed suit. We'll give you the details of all that later and remind you of all these institutions or labor force that thinks that governments has to play its role before it goes it goes back to work. Currently, we have our university students at home because lecturers have decided not to lecture due to bad conditions of service. We'll give you some more after this. This is Good Afternoon Ghana. My name is Annie Efompofo. We'll be going to we'll delve into the details later on after the break. All right, you're welcome back to Good Afternoon Ghana. So let's take you through the various agitations by the various organizations and institutions who think that government has a lot to do, has a bigger role to play before they go back to the table. We start off. I think we have the slides on our screens. Okay, so industrial actions and agitations in the year 2022. We start off with members of the Certified Registered Anesthetics went on strike from January 1, 2022. Improved working conditions and recognition is what they were demanding for, and called off the strike after an agreement reached with the Ghana Health Service. The second one was the Teachers and Educational Workers Union, who went on strike from January 5 due to non-payment of the professional development allowance. And then we also have the leadership of TEU suspended the strike after a crunch meeting with government representatives. The third one, Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, CETAG, laid down its tools on January 6, 2022, over claims that the government had failed to implement the 2017-2020 conditions of service as agreed in a Memorandum of Understanding signed between the CETAG and government. The association called off the strike on January 24, 2022, following validation of January 2022 salaries, the implementation and payment of the 2017-2020 conditions of service. The fourth one, cocoa carriers from the various warehouses of Ghana COCOBOD have begun the strike, an indefinite strike, to demand for better service conditions and increment in salary. Cocoa carriers called off the strike on January 11 after meeting with the licensed buying companies and management of COCOBOD. The fifth one, University of Teachers Association members of all campuses are on strike to force government improve their conditions of service. So the association has laid down its working tools since January 10, 2022. And to date, we're still dealing with that particular strike. The sixth one, the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana, CLOCSAC, directed its members on January 18, 2022, to proceed on an indefinite action nationwide from January 20, 2022. So the strike action was in demand for better conditions of service. The group called off its strike following the meeting with the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission on January 2022. The seventh one, members of KATH Doctors Association had declared a strike on Tuesday, 1st February 2022 over the not payment of their car allowance and 13-month salary. The industrial action was called off 24 hours after later management reached out to the doctors. Eighth, beneficiaries of Government National Builders Corp, NABCO, program hit the streets on January 17 in protest of what they call the undue delay in the payment of their allowances. The ninth one, staff of Ghana Meteorological Agency is on nationwide strike since yesterday, and according to the staff, the government has failed to respond to the resolution presented to the Communication and Digitalisation Ministry on January 5, which enumerated their poor conditions of service, hence their decision to commence the industrial action. All right, so let's go on to the phone lines, in fact, via Zoom, and speak with labor expert Austin Gamey, who's joined us. Mr. Gamey, thank you. I haven't spoken with you this year, so Happy New Year. We're still in the early, the first quarter of the year. Welcome to Good Afternoon, Ghana.
Good afternoon, Annie, and Happy New Year. Also.
Happy New Year to you, sir. So, is it surprising, first of all, that all these agitations seem to have crammed into January?
Well, thank you. Yes, it's not entirely surprising because we are not actually practicing the reality of industrial relations in Ghana as the law envisaged. So these are the consequences if you are not following the principles as enunciated under the Labour Act. Obviously, this is what will happen, and you wouldn't know the time it will happen. So January, which is normally a period when we are all broke, that you have to remember that there is maybe some money of yours hanging somewhere. So you want to take advantage of it and make sure you get it. So yes, it coincidentally happened to be January, but it's something that has been hanging from 2021, indeed 2019 into 2021 in particular, and then it all fostered around all of us in 2022, early part, January. Very bad, but it so happened.
But is it not too much to have at least counted about 8 of them within the first 2 months of the year? Isn't it too many institutions already calling for or agitating?
Surely, it's far too many. And to be honest with you, it's because, you see, when the labor law came into being, even though we have not fully started implementing it well, some people are even clamoring for a change. That's the best way Ghanaians know how to try and craft laws, but not to implement it. The point is this. Since the coming into force of the Labour Act, there ought to be a complete paradigm shift from the traditional adversarial approach to managing people and resolving disputes, as the law expected us to do. Unfortunately, our institutions of higher learning, various institutions that private, public, that train people, the trade unions, the employers, HR people, they've all failed to transfer, to move away from the traditional approach to negotiation, to industrial relations, and have hanged on to the 17th century approach. To date, as we speak, employer guilty, leadership of workers themselves the same, and that is exactly the result we are getting today. When you speak, they thought maybe because of the role you played in the crafting of the law or something, that's why you are saying what you are saying, but that is not the case. If you are not good at it, learn it. I also learn every day. I don't know everything. It's only God who knows everything. So we all have to open up ourselves and learn the nuances required under the law so that we do not visit this kind of hardship on ourselves. And that's the problem. We are negotiating the wrong.
Right.
We must make every reasonable effort to reach agreement. Nobody will feel troubled about either you are being dishonest or not being clear. Is to share relevant information. The only thing you cannot share is personal pay to everybody, but every other thing must be shared. It's written. Unfortunately, employers are not open to sharing information. Those who are sharing it, they share what pleases them. Unions are.
Okay, we're struggling with Austin Gamey's line. We'll try and re-establish him back on the line. He's made, two significant statements or comments, and in explaining, he says that we are not practicing the reality of industrial relations, and also we are interested in creating the laws and not really practicing them. I have still via Zoom Dennis Miracles Aboagye, who has been appointed as the Director of Local Governance and Decentralisation, or the Office of the President. Dennis, thank you for your time. My own hometown mate. You're welcome, Dennis. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Annie. How are we doing?
I'm good. And how are you? Congratulations.
Thank you, my sister. It's always a privilege to serve your nation. So
Right.
I owe gratitude to the president, and I thank him for the honor to do what I can do to help shape the future of this nation. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you too. So also is George Opare, who is the National Youth Organizer for the NDC. George is also via Zoom. George, you're welcome. Good afternoon to you too. Okay, George, you have to unmute your mic. I think it's muted, so you're not audible.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Annie.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Let me start off with Miracle. Miracle, I know that you are quite vociferous when it comes to trying to let the people know what government has done, the achievements you have chalked as a government. Agitations are also one way of marking the government and its performance. Do you, or will you be fair to accept that government is not doing well as you are trying to, campaign on the path of government haven't done well?
Thank you, Annie, and let me say a very good afternoon to Mr. Austin Gamey and my own senior brother, Pablo. Annie, I think we should rather say that the unions or the labor fronts are doing well, quite well, trying to enforce what they believe is the right of their members. If you're working, even in the private sector, in as much as you put out your productivity, you also want to ensure that your welfare, and for the labor unions, the leadership, the welfare of their members is critical. So you cannot take that away from them. And again, I would not think that the number of agitations is a determination of how well or how bad a government is doing. I think the measure would rather be the results or the outcome of these agitations. I mean, Mr. Austin Gamey is a household name. We've always known him because of such, activities in the nation. And he will agree with me that this is not the first time we are seeing labor agitations. I mean, we can pull out the number of agitations that have gone on, in this country over the years, and maybe begin to count how many agitations did we have under President Kufuor, how many agitations do we have under President Mills, President Mahama, and Addo. I think that would not be a very, realistic way of measurement. What I think is crucial is the outcomes of these agitations and what the issues are. And I agree with Mr. Gamey to a very large extent that if these things keep coming up, then it means that somebody sitting somewhere who probably has a technical know-how and is mandated, by the states to manage, the labor fronts in their various institutions probably is lacking somewhere. I have followed the number of agitations that you listed before we started the program, and you could clearly see that except for I think the UTAG one that is still lingering around, the others have gone back to their workplace, and the reason is simple.
And NAPCO.
NAPCO is not on strike. NAPCO is on strike action.
Well, they are NAPCO agitating. We're not saying they're on strike. They are agitating for what's due them.
Yeah, but they are not strike. So I mean, the key thing is that if you listen to the UTAG strike, which for me I think is a highlight of all the conversation.
But you see, even to set the record straight, UTAG even has been taken to court to that extent. And after the court ruling, they sound adamant from going back into the classroom.
So Annie, the point I was going to make is that UTAG have had this issue pending since 2012. I mean, their demand is that there's an agreement they had with government in 2012. There was no action in 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018 to date. And so they are of the view that if the issue has been left pending since 2012 and no action on it to date, then they do not believe that if they decide to go back to the lecture hall, government is going to act on it. I think it's a very fair point. It's an issue of mistrust. But what I think that at this point, all of us Ghanaians...
It's an issue of mistrust. It's an issue of mistrust. And then again, when a new government comes in and raise the bar to another level. So when you're recounting what has happened in the previous administration, you also want to put side by side what the new administrations, one after the other, promised when they were coming into office.
I mean, no doubt. And that for me, I think that these are issues that none of us who have been in government can even try to play politics with it. Because, I mean, this is an issue that's been pending since 2012. We inherit liabilities and assets. When we came into office in 2016, 2017, we are in 2022. And the issues are still pending. The previous government who signed the agreement with them did not do anything about it between 2012 and 2016. And so the issue is still pending. So for me, it's not even an issue of the blame game as to which government has done what. I think that we've gotten to the point where all stakeholders, UTAG, NLC, and the Ministry of Education should begin to move to the middle and move from their entrenched positions as we are all perceiving or seeing now. You cannot go into the negotiating table with a gun to your head. And at this point, that's what I think, the point I think we are now, because it looks as if UTAG have a gun to the head of government, and government also have their guns on the head of UTAG. NLC has dragged UTAG to court. UTAG says we are going to appeal, and we are not going to adhere to the directives of the court and what have you. It does not help with any negotiations.
Right.
And I'm sure Mr. Gamey would agree with me on this.
Right. I will get back to Mr. Gamey.
In the interest of the students, in the interest of the states, I think that the best thing at this point is for all of us to drop our guns, have a little bit of trust at this point, and say, what is it that you can offer, and what is it that you are demanding? I don't think if government would be able to fulfill completely whichever agreement they had with UTAG in 2012, we'll be talking about it now. And so it means that UTAG would also have to, at this point, agree to move a little bit from where they are. And the government will also have to probably amend or review some of the offers that they are making, which UTAG has not been accepting. If we do that, we should be able to, to make some headways. But I share completely with the sentiments of the labor unions. But I believe that in the interest of the students, they should go back to the classroom and continue the discussions in the boardroom.
Right. Let me engage Opare Addo. George, can you hear me? If you can hear me. Yes. So Miracle is making references to what has happened in the past. And it looks as though that is a build-up to the current mistrust situation that you find with the labor unions.
And let me say good afternoon to your viewers. And let me also add my voice to the many who have congratulated Dennis Aboagye. Surprisingly, when I left office as MC, he's the one who succeeded me when Akufo-Addo fired me. So I'm happy with his progress. Adi, winning an election is very easy, but governing is hard. And that is what the NPP and another Dankwa Mahmoud Bawumia did not envisage. If you listen to them in 2016, when they were campaigning, it sounded as if they had a magic wand that was going to solve all the problems of this country. And that is where they find themselves today. It is based on the things they said to people, the many promises they made. That is how come we are having all these labor agitations. When you are listing the number of strike actions, surprisingly, you left out the GPRTU one. You know, there was a day commercial drivers were not working in this country. Just this year, you left out that one. And in a very long time.
Right. Pardon us. We left that. Right.
Yeah. In recent times, the number of industrial actions we are seeing is not very common. I'm not saying during successive governments we didn't have strike actions, but what we currently see today is because of one, mistrust, and two, government itself has a problem. The way government communicates. You've seen it in Parliament with the passage of the e-levy, with the passage of the budget. This government has a big problem with the people they send to go and negotiate. Annie, the messenger is equally as important as the one sending, is equally as important as the message you are sending. If the messenger is one that doesn't carry himself with trust, if the messenger is not clothed with the right authority, the people don't trust the messenger, it becomes difficult negotiating. What this government is suffering from is the problem of the messenger, the one who goes to negotiate. I don't want to mention names, but we've seen members of this government speak condescendingly, how condescending they've been when they engage people. And clearly, if I am agitated and you're condescending, trust me, it's not going to go down well with us. And that is the biggest problem that confronts this government. When this UTAG action started, you remember late last year, UTAG went on strike. They called them to the negotiating table, they spoke to them, they agreed, and then they went back to the classroom. What happened next? The way they carried themselves, the way they spoke to them. You hear government spokespersons on TV and radio and how they speak about industrial actions. Very condescending. Clearly, when you speak to me in a manner like that, you don't expect me to go back to the classroom when what is due me has not been paid. The biggest problem confronting this government is the messenger, those they send to convey messages, those they send to go to the negotiating table. If government is going to take a restart, do an introspection of some of these issues, I believe clearly a lot of these issues will be resolved. Just yesterday, the meteorological services have embarked or have started their strike action. These are not usual times. These are not common times. These are not everyday times that you see things like this happening. So my advice to them is that now that he's at the presidency, maybe you should engage the president one-on-one, because most of the actions that have been suspended have not been resolved. And I fear for the future of this country. The judiciary goes on strike, teachers are on strike. As I speak to you just yesterday, Nagras has threatened that if they go ahead, because now they want to take the power of appointed masters from GES to the Ministry of Education. And this is a cause for action. Immediately this happens, Nagras is also going to embark on it because they've already served notice. And as arrogant as this government is, if we are not careful, they'll go through with it. For instance, look at what the Minister of Education tried doing, changing the curriculum, changing the term system to a semester system without recourse to those who matter, without recourse to stakeholders. When you do this, it is a recipe for disaster. And that is exactly what we find ourselves. Anytime this government decides to do anything, instead of consulting stakeholders, they started free SHS without due consultation. They do a lot of things without consulting anybody. The only reason why e-levy is where it is today is because they refuse to consult stakeholders. Today, after you face all these difficulties, you decide to embark on town hall meetings to now engage stakeholders. That should tell you that stakeholder engagements are very important. When you see the red herrings, when you see the red flags, what do? You quickly start engaging them. I recall during our time when we were in government, I'm not saying we didn't have industrial action, but when Haruna Idris was moved to the Ministry of Employment and Social Welfare, you realize that most of these actions were curtailed because he was a people's person. He moved in when in the face of very difficult situations. When Haruna speaks, you realize that there was a time one of the labor unions came out and said, if not for the minister, they were not going to resume work. They were not going to go back to their duty posts. It tells you how important the messenger is. And that is what this government is suffering from.
Yeah,
Those
but during your administration, I could recall that when nurses were agitating and then also lecturers were agitating over the research allowance and the changes the Ministry of Education wanted to make, you actually had, for want of a better expression, a similar posture of condescending.
No, when we spoke about, but you see, we ended up giving back the research allowance. What we said was that, and what we were telling them was that the research allowance they were taking was not sustainable. Rather, we're going to set up a research fund so that if you are going to do, because if you are giving $600 for research, and let's be very honest.
Before you go into the analysis, I just want to look at the optics of it, that you were complaining that today's administration has a posture, and that is that of a condescending attitude or behavior in trying to hear the labor agitations. And I'm saying that even during your period, I recall that there was almost a similar posture when the research allowance situation was on. And that is why the opposition then captured it.
It didn't drag for 2 months. It didn't drag for 2 months. It didn't drag for 2 months. And mind you, we had a very difficult task of implementing single spine. Single spine came with all the problems associated with implementation of labor issues. So we dealt with it. And my concern is that the level of agitations we see today, the level of industrial actions we see today, within 2 months, you enlisted more than 8 different organizations. It's never happened under any government. That within 2 months, you have 8 different industrial groups, trade unions, embarking on various strikes. It hasn't happened. It should tell you that something is wrong. And like I keep saying, it is easy winning an election based on propaganda, but it is very difficult governing, and that is where they find themselves. They should do proper stakeholder engagement. They should send people. They should send people to the negotiating table. People who are not condescending. People who respect the views and opinions of other people. And then I can assure you that we'll make headway. When you listen to the labor unions, they are not asking for much. They are asking for what is due them. If you don't have it, let them see that genuinely you don't have it. But if you tell me I should tighten my belt, you don't have it. And my president is still flying private jets around the world at $600,000 a day. Clearly, when you come to the negotiating table, I'm not going to listen to you.
Right.
And many other things that this government is doing. So the honors rest on government. If it wants some of these actions stalled, then it has to do more.
You have been in government before. Before I move to Austin, he actually said that the reality of industrial relations is actually not being practiced. We know that we've had our law for some time now, and it is specifically, in fact, it's explicit on what is required of workers and what is required of the employer, but without making reference to any government or accusing any government, he says that in this country, we are not practicing the reality. What is the difficulty? Because sometimes if UTAG goes on strike, there's Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service are supposed to be ensuring that all agitations are being attended to whilst they are working. But all of a sudden, they go on strike before you find that the MMDAs are coming in to secure the situation. What's the difficulty?
Annie, Uncle Austin is a labor expert. I'm just a lawyer, so I may not be able to speak on labor issues authoritatively like he would. But I'll say something. Successive governments over the years have had a certain posture. Also, unions have also had a certain posture. It is time that we all agree that we are a country governed by laws. And so instead of allowing institutions to decide what they need to do, we should all agree that we are going to allow our laws to work. As a lawyer, I have practical difficulties with some of the decisions that have come from our courts. And so people gradually are losing confidence in the court system. Because if in all this, the court instructs UTAG to go back to the classroom, and UTAG is saying they are not going to go to the classroom, they are not going to go back, then it tells you that there is a challenge, there is a difficulty somewhere. Because immediately we start disrespecting court decisions, then we are destroying our democracy. But you can't blame people entirely, because some of the decisions that have come from the courts, to respectfully, some are very difficult to accept. And issues of labor, issues of bread and butter. For instance, the judge who sits there and makes those decisions, the question you ask is that if he's not being paid right, would he be willing to come and sit in court and administer justice? So these are relevant questions that we must ask. But we must all agree that these are rules. We've all agreed that we are going to be governed by rules. So once laws are made, we must respect those laws. Governments must begin to build stronger institutions, equip them well, appoint the right people. When you appoint politicians, when you appoint a former MP on the ticket of the NPP to go and sit in as a National Labour Commission's boss, clearly he'll be skewed towards a certain direction. If it's even being fair, the union will have issues because of his background. But when you appoint people with no political coronation to sit in certain positions and ask them and give them the proper authority and equip those institutions, and if we all agree to respect the decisions of those institutions, we'll be making headway. But if we continue to put politicians in some of these key government establishments, that should not be partisan. Then we'll have issues of mistrust. So if Opon Fosu sits as the National Labour Commission, a former member of parliament on the NPP's ticket, and I am a union leader, and I go and sit with him, it'll be very difficult to listen to what he's saying.
That's a critical point.
Because I know that his position.
That's a critical point you've raised.
His position will be that of the government position. So all of us collectively, and I'm not holding forth for any government, all of us must begin to build strong institutions. That is the only way we can nip some of these labor agitations in the bud.
Is Mr. Austin Gamey with us? Hello, Austin. Mr. Gamey, are you with us?
Yes, Annie, I'm here with you.
Great. Great. So I hope you were listening in to what our other guests were saying, one from the government and one from the biggest opposition who's been in government before. So, George just made a point that, sometimes when you even have persons who have held political party positions before, and you put them into institutions that are supposedly supposed to be neutral, actually, and supersede all activities in government in terms of labor. For example, the labor board. How do you respond to some of these actions and moves of government?
Thank you. Annie, let me be very open and honest with you and to everybody listening to us. Like I said from the beginning, we have not started implementing even 1/3 of the Labour Act yet. Not at all. Assuming we're doing that, we will not be having this conversation. Let me just put it this way. Number one is that under the Labour Act and the practice of industrial relations, even government will not be mentioned as government. That's why I would not call them government. As soon as you are appointed into any office, whether you are government official or not, you detach yourself completely when it comes to industrial relations, because it works only on honest trust, not just trust, honest trust. So in effect, I will not call them this entity government. Government is also an employer. So when you put on the posture of an employer, behave as an employer within the confines of the law. Section 97 is very clear. But before we even stick to that, let me put it this way. Under the law, section 101, subsection 2, and 103, subsection 4, the parties to any negotiation must ensure that they have clear-cut cardinal rules that will govern the procedure of the negotiation, so that one party will not feel that somebody is shielding somebody. And this is crafted by both parties themselves. And this must be done before the commencement of any form of negotiation. I can guarantee you they have some form of rules, but they don't abide by it. And the reason why they don't abide by it is if they themselves. Then two, the National Labour Commission, as established under the law, is expected to be 100% impartial body. Even if you are transferred from the office of the president, and you are even the cousin of the president, you are duty bound to take off the hat and the cloak of a political party and behave as an impartial person using neutral language in everything you do. That is the intent of the law. Unfortunately, we all keep on, like my two brothers have been speaking. I appreciate the challenge they have as direct political party people. But let me put it this way, I admire them. And let me put it this way. I will not talk about yesterday again. Under this law and industrial relations practice, you are to carry only the good things that have been done in 2000, 2004, 2008, all the way down to 2017, beginning another term of another government. Only the things that are good and are helpful should be carried with you. Referencing yesterday and worrying ourselves about this fellow, President Kufuor did this, Atta Mills did this, John Mahama did this, Akufo-Addo's first term did this. It doesn't help anything. What has to be done is, what did we do well? How can we do it better? That is the way to go.
Kindly hold on there.
Industrial relations.
Kindly hold on there. I'll pursue that with you for you to conclude, but it's time for me to take a break so that I'll come back for you to conclude on that, and then I'll let the other guests also come in on what you have said. Let's go for a quick breather. Welcome back to Good Afternoon Ghana. Alhaji Haruna from Ashaman said that, Annie, good afternoon. Why is Miracle going on to refer to the previous administration when they are found wanting? They should give us a break. That is from Alhaji Haruna from Ashaman. But let me go back to Austin Gamey. You were making a point that the references that they make, it's not beneficial to the current situation.
Yes, Annie.
Okay, great.
You. Yeah, I've unmuted.
Right.
Thank you. But the reality is that if you and your husband quarreled in 2010, and we are in 2022, and the two of you, every moment you get, in 2010, you did this to me, and you said this, and I got angry, and do you remember what happened, and so forth, and so what? And so what? What do we get out of it? So the point is that, what have you, Annie, and your husband, what have you been doing well? Why don't you talk about what you have been doing well? So the point is, in 2012 to 2016, John Mahama, did he do any good thing at all? Let's reference that. All the bad things we don't want to hear. That's why we brought in another person. So that person carried the good things of John Mahama, added to his, and we all support and grow the nation. That is how civilized society should work. And that's what industrial relations is about. But we are behaving as if the moment you insult and attack the personality of Nana Addo, then you have won. That doesn't help. If you insult and attack John Mahama, and so what? Did he do anything good? Yes. Let's talk about that one. all the bad things we don't want, that's why we didn't even want to vote for him. So what's the problem? In industrial relations, what is expected is labor and management to sit down and negotiate. Negotiate in good faith. And good faith means you don't have any option of wanting to take a position. That is why our labor law is very unique and special. And we are misbehaving with it. We even want to change it.
We haven't, as you say, we haven't even started implementing it. So I don't know how we want to change something we haven't even used. But Miracle, let me come back to you. I think you have to respond to that. Why that has been, the practice of any official that speaks for the government. We always have to make references and try to sort or seek to equalize.
Annie, in fact, if you listened to me carefully, my initial comment, you'd realize that I actually did not equalize or attempt to equalize with the NDC. What I did was to basically state a matter of fact that the UTAG strike is on the basis of an agreement signed in 2012, and for which reason government of Ghana refused to act on in 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018 to 2022. That is what I said. And so if you're going to make a point about making reference to the past, then yes, I referred to 2018 as well. It was MPP that was in power. I made reference to 2019. It was MPP that was in power. But we cannot have this conversation without making reference to what it is that we are discussing. It will be very, very hypocritical on our part. Because the question is very important, and I am actually now going to make reference based on some of the comments that lawyer Opare made. Because once he makes those comments, they have no choice but to make reference. Now, number one, it is completely misleading for Pablo to make the point that we are seeing unprecedented number of strikes at this time. That is not true. Annie, if you can recall the famous dead goat syndrome headline, this headline came in 2015. In fact, I think it was far away, either Botswana or Rwanda, when former President John Mahama was meeting the Ghanaian community. That was a time when we had multiple labor front strikes. Teachers were on strike, nurses were on strikes, doctors were on strikes, police were, a lot of public sector were on strike at that time. In fact, we had NDC groups releasing statements, and they are out there, go to Graphic Online, having press conferences, making recommendations that the state should even outlaw labor front strikes. It was in 2015 in this country. That was when former President John Dramani Mahama made an emphatic point. This is what he said. He said, I have seen more demonstrations and strikes in my first 2 years than any other government. I don't think it can get worse. It is said that when you kill a goat and you frighten it with a knife, it doesn't fear the knife because it is already dead. I have a dead goat syndrome, he said. This is Graphic Online. It is there. And so if you come in 2022 and then you come and make a very misleading statement that we are seeing labor front strikes in 2022 than never before, I have no choice. I would respond and I'll lay the facts bare as they are. It is only under former John Dramani Mahama that we have seen a president made a statement to the effect that he cares less about labor front strikes that is going on in this country. Under this government, no one has said, and when you listen to me carefully when I was making my statement, I never said that the UTAG strike was unlawful or there was anything wrong with it. And you heard me correctly say that I share their sentiments. But what I would ask for is for them to calm down, drop their guns, go back to the classroom, and then let's stick to the negotiations in the boardroom. And I think we should leave the conversation as such.
Right.
We will be treating the students and the parents unfairly if we try to draw politics into the conversation and we are making comments as to a government that said something that can be. You signed the agreement in 2012, 4 years. Why did you sign an agreement for 4 years when you knew you could not implement it? Those are legitimate questions. We cannot make progress if we do not even have a history as to why we got where we are now. And so if the government of the day has taken the bull by the horn and is in the boardroom negotiating trying to have a middle ground with the teachers on the back of an agreement that they did not sign. You signed the agreement knowing very well that the state, the people, and the state would not be able to shoulder it. And so if the government of the day has not thrown the agreement away, the government of the day has not thrown the agreement away, the president has not said that he is dead. He's a dead goat. The president has not said that they can go away with their strikes.
Right.
Nobody in the MP, unlike the NDC, has said that.
Right. We're wrapping up. Before I move to lawyer, let me ask you. After going to court, to be specific, after going to court and UTAG seem to be adamant, what are you going to do? Because I find it strange that even after a court ruling, we still have to be going through negotiations.
I think that point is a point that George made, which I agree with him, without any doubt. And we cannot have a state where some people will choose, irrespective of our sentiment, to obey or disobey court rulings. For us, the ultimate is a court. And so irrespective of your concerns or what your worries are, once the court rules or the court gives an order, it behoves on us as citizens to, first of all, comply by the court order. And if we have other redress that we want to seek, we can further seek that redress.
Right.
I mean, that is something that myself or Pablo would not disagree to.
Right.
We need to appeal to UTAG to understand that UTAG, the court has given a ruling. The court has not thrown away your concerns. The court says, return to the classroom and continue your negotiations. And I think it's a fair assertion.
Right. Let me have lawyer come in.
For the sake of the students.
Right. Lawyer, you can also, have a say on this one before labor experts will also give us the final words.
Annie, let me correct a misrepresentation my junior brother put out. When President Mahama made I hate to do this, and if you follow my discussion, I never dwell on the past because I believe we should make progress. But it is a bit unfortunate when consistently the NPP throws out such lies about His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama. When President Mahama made that famous dead goat statement, he was referring to a question that was posted to him, that he promised that in 2016, we were not going to exceed our budget. And the records are there. And he went further to say that he had seen more industrial actions within the first 2 years. And so no other thing is going to push him for him to overspend. Because the question was that after every elections, we overspend because workers know and workers hold governments to ransom. And if you don't give us this, because it's an election year, we are going to go up against you. So what he said then was that he was not going to overspend the budget. He was rather going to stick to the budget, and he was assuring Ghanaians, and that he did. If you look at the budget for 2016 to 2017, for the first time in an election year, government did not overspend its budget. And it was in reference that he was not referring to workers who were on strike then. So for Dennis to make that reference is a bit unfortunate, and it's inaccurate.
I have quoted what he said. It's online.
And I'm telling you that I am giving you a reference to where.
I have quoted verbatim.
Yes, but then the clarity he wants to make is the context in which he made that statement. He's not denying the quote.
There is no context.
Workers were not on strike.
He made an emphatic statement.
All right.
I read it verbatim on online. Verbatim what he said. So just for the purpose of records, he can seek to explain now.
Workers were not on strike then. No labor group was on strike. He was making a reference to a question that he was asked, that was he going to overspend the budget in an election year? And he said, no, I won't do this because I have seen more industrial actions and I'm going to limit myself to the expenditure. I'm not going to go above the budget. And that he did. But I have listened to the NPP consistently throughout the misinformation that during an industrial action, President Mahama made this statement. That is not true.
And
that was not true. He made that statement in Botswana also, that he was a dead goat. And it was made in reference to something.
We are not a dead goat. We would negotiate with UTAG and find a solution
to
the problem
Dennis,
that you left.
And also, let me remind Dennis that maybe you don't have your facts right. This is the first time in the history of this country that we've had over 10 different labor unions embarking on industrial actions. That
Not
one
true.
you can double check.
Not true.
That
Not
one you
true.
can
I
double
have
check. But
not
then
true.
it's
I'll give
in all
you the
this.
list of
Then
all
it's
the
in all this.
industrial actions in August 2015.
Then
No, that-
Miracle, Miracle, we are
Let's make
wrapping up. If you
progress.
allow him so we can hear him, please. All
Then
right.
it's in all this. Let's make progress. Let's make progress. Annie,
Yes.
we are faced with difficulties as a country. Government is broke. You see, if government is going to come out, be honest to Ghanaian workers and tell workers that this is what I find myself. Because you see, once fuel prices go up and I feel the pinch and I'm a worker, I would demand for better conditions of service. That you can't take away from anybody. What government needs is honesty. Coming out to tell the Ghanaian worker that this is where we are. In 2013, President Mama was bold and honest. We are down to the bones. So we must all buckle up.
Right.
And that is what led to saying government should do same. And I can tell you for free, if government is bold and stop being condescending and comes down to apologize to the people of this country and tell them that I am going to start cutting down my expenditure. And so bear with me. This is the challenges that we are faced with. We are broke. We have misused and mismanaged the economy. Ghanaian workers will be lenient to this government. That is all I have to say.
Right. Austin, I think you can have the last word before we can go off. Where do we go from here in about 30 seconds or 1 minute? What can you tell us?
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the difficulties the two gentlemen are in, and I bear with them. When in 2013, that's why I said they should carry forward only the good things. Bad things, I'm not interested. When in 2013, it became very tough, similar situation. The president then called for a meeting at home. I was present. And I think that a common solution was found, then followed by the Senchi meeting. Let's not hide ourselves. Let's all come to the open space. The truth is that I saw the weather changing where I live and where I'm doing this Zoom with you. Then I remember that the Meteo people won't give us the correct information because they're on strike. We clearly have to be very careful. Everything is important. UTAG matter must be resolved as quickly as possible. All other matters are important. They must be resolved as quickly as possible. Let's help ourselves. Let government open up as employer. Let NLC continue to be impartial and not put on the hat of any political party, and let the people put their trust in them. Then we'll free government to tackle the major issues that are confronting all of us. I appreciate the challenge. We are all open. If they invite us to the table, we'll talk. Thank you.
That's very nice of you. Thank you so much for offering your services. I think it will be for on pro bono.
Hopefully, and I'll get something to pay my workers. I have 30 workers. I'm an employer. I don't want them to go on strike.
Miracle, this comes straight to you. I hope you have heard him.
Unfortunately, he's a miracle too.
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. This is what time will allow us. So I had Dennis Miracles Aboagye, the Director of Local Government, Governance and Decentralisation at the Office of the President, joining me. Also, Austin Gamey is a labor expert. He just made his point. And George Opare, who is a lawyer. He is the National Youth Organizer for the National Democratic Congress, your new position as well. My name is Annie Efuampofo. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. This is all we have for you this week. Next week, we'll be back definitely with Good Afternoon Ghana. Thanks for watching and enjoy your weekend.